This episode is brought to you by Resy and American Express. Resy is a digital platform that connects restaurants to restaurant lovers by elevating dining experiences, providing original industry content, and helping to fill some of the country's most exciting dining rooms. Because restaurants have always been more than just places to eat. The amazing world of restaurants is just a few taps away in the Resy app and at resy.com.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
The whole book was inspired by the steakhouse called Beef and Bottle in Charlotte, North Carolina. We all got in a van, we got there, everyone's starving, and we're greeted by this guy, Jerome, who was featured in the book. And he came right up to us, he says, "Y'all are gonna have the time of your life. I'm your bartender, I'm also your server. What kind of martini y'all want?"
This is Taste. I'm your host, Eliza Barbanel. Eric Wareheim is an actor, director, winemaker, and writer based in Los Angeles. You may know him as one half of the comedy duo behind the cult-followed Tim and Eric Awesome Show, Great Job. But in recent years, he's been making a foray into food and wine, starting with the New York Times bestselling cookbook, Foodheim. His new book, Steakhouse, chronicles his freewheeling, exhaustive search for the ultimate steakhouse. It's a heady mix of recipes, interviews with legendary servers, and his own very funny essays alongside great photography. And today on the show, we go deep on his steakhouse fixation and reporting process.
And at the top of the show, it's the return of Three Things, where Eliza and I talk about what is exciting us in the world of restaurants, cookbooks, and the food world as a whole. Eliza, we're back with Three Things. How are you?
I'm good, Matt. How are you?
I'm great. Do you want to start?
Yeah, my first thing is what I would say is the New York baking event of the season, maybe of the year. It's the Natasha Pickowicz Bake Sale. Have you been to one of the bake sales that she's done in the past?
Yeah, I went, I think maybe 3 years ago I went to one, and I definitely hauled a bunch of baked goods home, but more so the community, the folks I got to see there, and I think Natasha is doing amazing work. I want to hear about it.
Yeah, so it's a great community bake sale. I think she's been doing these as far back as 2017, 2016 maybe. I think originally they were raising money for Planned Parenthood. Yeah. They've grown in scale every single year. I've participated in them for Cake Scene in the past, and I'm going to be there again this Saturday at the WSA 180 Maiden Lane building. This year, it's over 100 food people participating, and it's benefiting 4 New York City-based nonprofits. So Heart of Dinner, Make the Road, One Love Community Fridge, and the Teaching Kitchen at Lenox Hill Neighborhood House, which I think on its own, those are all just incredible groups to support. But then when you look at the list of the people that are participating this year, it's pretty crazy. There's a wide range of, people more like the influencer space, like Haley Catalano. There's people from bakeries in New York, like Radio Bakery, Honey's Bakery, etc. Cake Scene is going to be there with magazines, and Tanya's doing some fig leaf maratozzi to go with that. So I think it's just kind of like come through, see who's going to be there, and of course, like leave with a bunch of good things. I
think I went to one at Haven's Kitchen in 2019. Now that you tell me a little bit about it, and what great forward causes and nonprofits that it's benefiting. And again, the hang is tremendous.
Yeah,
a tremendous hang.
Yeah, Pierce Abernathy, Kamari Mick, Sophia Rowe, Mehreen Karim, Abby
I'm
Balingit.
so bummed I'm missing this. Those are great people.
A lot of people who have been on the podcast.
Yeah.
Even if you're not going to be there, but you want to kind of put your money towards the grand total, you can buy tickets online. So it's free to attend, and then you buy a ticket either online or there, and the ticket is exchanged for the baked goods. So there's no cash being exchanged on the premises. So the tickets are exchanged for the baked goods, but if you wanted to just buy a ticket just to kind of support the grand total that's being fundraised for, someone could do that too.
Thank you, Natasha, for doing this. I appreciate it. And all the bakers for donating time. I love it so
I can't
much.
imagine what it's like to organize it.
It's very cool.
So that's my first thing, I guess.
Great to lead off with that. And if you're in New York on Saturday, definitely show up. It's going to be amazing.
What's your first thing?
My first thing is I got the new book from Katie Parla, Rome, a Culinary History Cookbook and Field Guide to the Flavors That Built a City. I love Katie's return to Rome in book form. Katie is a friend of the show and has been on a couple times, and she's going to be on later this fall to talk about the book. I love that Rome is the center. It's where Katie lives and has a lot of culinary tours and a real expertise. And what I like most about this book is it's under her own imprint, Parla Publishing. They did that wonderful Gary He McDonald's book is part of Parla Publishing, and really the design touches here are amazing to see in book form. It's very progressive in the best way possible. And of course, the book taps into Katie's 2 decades of research, eating, and storytelling in Rome, and not just covering the 4 or 5 iconic pastas, but really pushing the envelope with the recipe development. Ed Anderson did all the photos, and I love when Katie and Ed hook up on book projects. Tremendous team. So I'm going to link to the pre-order in the show notes and look forward to having Katie on the show.
Yeah, I think that's such an amazing title for the book. It really makes me want to sit down and read more from it.
It's great. What's your next thing?
Well, it's officially soup season, I would say.
It is.
I'm someone who refuses to make soup until it's truly gray and cold, and we've reached that moment, and I made a really great soup over the weekend. That's Andy Bergani's golden potato and grain soup, which is a New York Times recipe, I believe, from last year. It's a completely vegan potato leek soup, but it's really creamy because you slice the potatoes quite thin and then let them kind of break down and then almost like mash them into the soup as it cooks down. Super just cozy and heartwarming, and I finished it off with some lemon juice and a lot of grated parm on top. So I guess I ultimately made it not vegan, but I don't think you need to do that. But if you like to, that's great.
I think putting grated parm on that combination is kind of required.
So
Perfect.
good. And whenever I make a soup like that, I always want to get like a butt end of the bread and toast it really hard and then drop it in the soup and let it kind of get crispy, soggy texture. So that's what I did. I can't wait to make it again.
What was the potato choice? Do you recall?
It calls for baby Yukon Gold potatoes, which are at the farmer's market right now.
Yeah.
And the skins are quite thin and break down into the soup, so you don't need to peel them, which is a huge benefit.
Amazing. Thanks for that info, because I always mess up my potatoes when I'm doing soups, and I just roasted some potatoes. Picking the right potato is important.
It really is. And I find that, like, especially when you go to the farmer's market and they have maybe 6 or 7 kinds of potatoes as opposed to the 2 or 3 that are at the store, I get very overwhelmed. I don't know what to do with the extra potatoes. I
agree. Just did that. And again, picked the wrong ones to roast, and they were quite hard. But
well, I highly recommend Yukon Gold. I think that's kind of like the gold standards as it is of potato. What's your next thing?
My next thing is I was in Los Angeles last week, and I wanted to do a short recap of the Los Angeles Chefs Conference, which was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. We was at Redbird in Vibiana in downtown, which is the really amazing space, restaurant and event space in that kind of deco style. And I got to see a lot of friends. Shout out to the listeners who came up. It was nice to meet you. And a couple highlights. There was a great media panel with some folks from Eater and the Infatuation, and a publicist was on the stage and talking about modern food media, a lot of the things we talk about on the show, and really the quickly changing world with AI. I thought it was very smart. Got to attend a tribute conversation to the work of Jonathan Gold. Evan Kleinman moderated with Lori Ochoa, Nancy Silverton, and Roy Choi. And I just thought, let's remember Jonathan Gold and continue to remember his work. That was excellent. I was on a panel with Avish Naran from Peach's Palace and some other amazing chefs, and I had a great time being the lone outsider, non-LA chef. I didn't know where it would go. I was like, why am I here? But ultimately, my role was to say Los Angeles is an incredible place to cover as a journalist covering the national scene, and just supporting LA is super important on our show. for a lot of reasons. And I loved catching up with Avish because gotta go to Pisha's Palace. I think they're hitting new strides there. And let's talk a little bit about the food. I got to try Say Pizza for the first time, which is kind of a now legendary Koreatown tasting counter for pizzas. Had a beautiful slice there. I tried Jordan Oken's tribute to the shrimp cocktail. He was doing a fried shrimp bun with fresh horseradish. And to close, there was an after party at Grand Central Market, and Hilberto from Holbosch was doing all the food. And wonderful just to see community. Congrats to Brad Metzger for hosting it, and thank you for having me. I love this. It's every other year, I believe, is when they do it, and I love attending and just love being in LA. Just love being there.
I love to hear you loving LA.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great event.
It was great. What's your last thing?
My last thing is I realized recently that I've never talked about the Tiny Dollhouse store on the podcast.
You didn't.
Which is something that, if you know me, I talk about all the time off the mic, which is a miniature items store on the Upper East Side here in New York. But the food selection of tiny things at this store, I think, is so incredible. And every time I'm in the vicinity, I find myself walking in to get like a tiny box of donuts, or last time I was there, I got like a Candyland board game that's about the size of my thumbnail and a miniature pink laptop. But they have really like mini cereal boxes, or also like exact replica Chanel bags, like truly
so good.
Anything that you could want in miniature. I do think the target audience are children and adults who make their own dollhouses. But if you are someone who just gets a lot of joy out of a really small version of something, or you're buying gifts for people, I think like those are all great reasons to go to the Tiny Dollhouse store. And because it is a food podcast, I will say that they have like the most beautiful miniature kitchens with like a whole Thanksgiving turkey feast, or a box of donuts, like just everything. And I just needed to talk about Tiny Dollhouse.
It's amazing. When you brought in the few objects that you purchased, Clayton and I were envious of those items.
I know. I need to bring more in for you guys. But your holiday presents this year will be very tiny.
It makes me think about the conversation I had with Nikita Richardson earlier this week about Sims and food on Sims, thinking about like the way that food is portrayed on that show. And I'm thinking like this is like the physical form of Sims in a way.
Yeah, exactly. And they're made by like different kind of miniature producers from around the world. It seems like there's a whole whisper network of like people that make miniature like Corbusier sofas, things like that.
Wait, they're doing Corbu architecture?
They have,
or sofa?
Matt, I can't overstate like the amount of like high-low, especially because it's on the Upper East Side. There's a lot of like designer tiny things going on.
So cool.
The name of the store is the Tiny Dollhouse store.
Okay, Google that. It'll be links in the show notes to the address there. Check it out.
What's your last thing?
My last thing is I'm just thrilled. I'm going to Korea later this week, and I just wanted to be like, I'm going to Korea. If you have any recommendations, hit me up. But more so, I just am excited to visit a few places. I'll be there speaking at a conference in Gangwon-do. Later in the week, I'll be in Seoul for 3 days. On my hit list, Bium, which is a Michelin-starred temple cuisine. We're having lunch there. We're going to Bobo's Sikdang in Apgujeong, which I've read about. It's a Korean Chinese restaurant that I've wanted to go to for a couple years. And Wild Duck Wine Bar, Austin Tedesco shouted that out in a recap of Seoul, so I'm going to visit that. And we're heading to the mountains, a place I featured in Korea World, Dookie Hong, in my book. We had a Gangwon-do chapter, and we're going to this great restaurant in the mountains called Gakdonggol outside of Sokcho. And man, I am excited to be back in Korea next week. I will make sure to recap it on a future episode when I return. And I'm probably going to drink some coffee. I'm probably going to end up at Mesh near Seoul Forest and hang out in Songsu. Yeah. Excited.
I'm really jealous and also really excited for you. And I'm looking on the map at Wild Duck Canteen. And I have to say, there's a place near there that I want to go to that I think you should go to, which is called Seoul Community Radio. Have you been there before?
Oh, no, I haven't.
I think I've just seen them live streaming on Instagram or something, but they have really cool DJs that come in. And I'm pretty sure you can hang out like at the radio station while they're doing that. So I'll send you a link.
Thank you, Eliza, for that rec. I appreciate that.
I haven't been to Seoul, so I don't know if this is as good as I think it is. But sometimes you got to send someone to go on your behalf.
I will do Scada. I know that a cake scene pop-up in Seoul is probably in the future at some point.
We'll make it happen.
Make it happen. Well, thanks for sharing your 3 things.
You too.
Hey, Talkhouse Network listeners, I'm Jad Abumrad. You may know me from Radiolab or Dolly Parton's America. I'm here to tell you about my new show, Higher Ground's latest music podcast called Fela Kuti Fear No Man. In a world that's on fire, what do we do with art? Like music, is it just there to distract us? Or can a song actually change the world? I'm Jad Abumrad. In this series, we dive into the life and the music of Fela Kuti, the fiercest musical warrior that ever was. And I'm not the only one who thinks this.
Fela has to be the epicenter.
Questlove.
The passion, the pain.
Jay-Z.
The need to get the message out there.
Beyonce quoted Fela on one of her albums.
He invited me out to his club just outside Lagos.
And then there is Paul McCartney, Sir Paul. He tells the story of seeing Fela play.
And when this music broke, I ended up just weeping.
We'll tell you about his life, ignite a youth movement, dive into hidden archives to find out what does rebellion look like, sound like, when the weapon is not guns, but music. Join us for Fela Kuti Fear No Man. Listen on Audible or wherever you get your podcasts.
Today's episode of This Is Taste is brought to you by Grow Therapy. Have you ever tried to Google therapist near me and ended up more anxious than when you started? Now, I did this once and landed on some guy in Brooklyn Heights who wanted to charge me $900 for a session. Now, I get that brownstone living is expensive, and those weekly visits to Lavara, those can add up. But come on, man, $900? Grow Therapy makes it way less overwhelming and way more affordable. Whether it's your first time in therapy or your 50th, Grow makes it easier to find a therapist who fits your needs. They connect you with thousands of independent, licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. It's that easy. And you can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. And if something comes up, you can cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your own time. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0, depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/taste today to get started. That's growtherapy.com/taste. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
Eric Wareheim, This Is Taste. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Wow. Thank you for having me. It's an honor. It's a big day. It's a big day to talk to you, honestly.
It's a big day to talk about steak. I almost introduced you as Eric Steakheim because that's what your Zoom handle is right now, which is honestly maybe should be your future stage name going forward.
Well, I appreciate that. And I tried very hard to have it legally changed for the pub date. Pub date is what we use in the industry when it just means your buck's out. No, I'm kidding. But,
they said there's already an Eric Steakheim. You can't have it.
Yeah. They said there's tons of Eric Steakheims. And I could fight them in court, but I call my lawyer and it's just too much money. And the time is really what it is. It's probably a year. And at that point, I'll just want Wareheim again. So I'm going to let it slide.
I'll let it slide this time. But if you need a legal fight, call me in.
I will.
We've got a lot of steak to discuss on the pod. But before we get into that, I'm wondering if you could tell me an early food memory from growing up that you think somehow encapsulates your food point of view.
Well, that's a great question. I have two. Firstly, my mom's from Germany, so I would go visit my Oma and Opa, and they lived in a tiny village. They grew all their own food, and they were shocked that my sister and I, all we wanted was sodas, candies. In Germany, you cut any fruit juice with half, soda water. It's just, you would never drink full juice. It's really interesting. It's like a European thing. So that, and how different, even as a kid, things tasted really different. And my mom brought that back, had a great garden. So that was the first kind of inspiration of what, food could be like, home-cooked village food. And then the other one, my family and I went out to eat maybe once a year, to a real restaurant. We did Pizza Hut every once in a while, and we did Burger King after church, because the only way my dad could get me and my sister to go to church, we needed that Whopper. I thought about that Whopper the entire time in church. But we would go to a place called Seafood Shanny near the King of Prussia Mall. And Seafood Shanny was kind of like a seafood steakhouse. Like everyone wore tuxedos. Maybe they're a little blue in tint, but it had, all the cocktails. It had, and when I was 6, I was really into Manhattans. Like my parents, no, just kidding. That's like the most hardcore drink for a kid. But that place was like, I remember all year, just I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to have my own shrimp cocktail. And the feeling of a steakhouse is very similar. It's just this like, people go there to celebrate anniversaries. It's welcoming. It's comfortable, leather boots. It's all those things that I wanted to and the characters. I remember the host being this like eccentric guy that I kept asking my parents, does he live around here? He looks so odd. I love him. So that was like maybe the early stages of, and then I didn't rediscover it till many years later of like what is propelling me to like spend 3 years of my life writing a steakhouse cookbook.
Yeah, I think we should get into that. Like, what sparked your fascination with steakhouses?
I think it was after I wrote my New York Times best-selling cookbook. I'm just kidding. I was coming up with another book, and it was originally Steak and Potatoes, because I've been stripping away the fancy in certain aspects of my life. I've done a lot of traveling. I've had kaiseki in Kyoto. I love those things. Nomer is like shorthand for no. People in Copenhagen call it Nomer. So I've been to Nomer. And I loved those experiences so much. But as you get older, you realize what actually moves you and what makes you really happy and and comfort is a big thing that I wanted to write about. And at the same time, America is going through lots of wild things, lots of horrible things, lots of good things. But I always have the conversation: what do we have here that's special, other than jazz and barbecue? But we have the steakhouse. It's very unique. Our version of a steakhouse is very unique to America, and I wanted to celebrate that. And you know, we originally pitched 11 steakhouses, which would be not that big of a task, maybe a year job. We ended up doing 65 because we got on the road. We met these people. I demanded that we did portraits of every single person, the dishwasher to the owner, interviewed everybody. And then the book started taking shape, which is not just a cookbook. I mean, it has amazing recipes, but it's really the story of these places and how they exist and why they exist and how they're unique and how they're kind of similar, but very different at the same time from one another because they're not chains. It's really the whole corporate um, conglomeration, those kind of things are just out of my system. All I crave is, and it's what I did in TV. I met real people, and I was like, "Do you want to act?" And that kind of thing of putting these characters on a pedestal has not been done for the steakhouse yet. You ask any chef, any food person, a steakhouse is up there with their favorite meal, the favorite experiences. So I think I had to be the one to kind of do the official document of that scene.
Yeah, I think it really is such a beautiful and special book. And I was thinking a lot about the idea of hospitality. I feel like especially coming out of the pandemic with like QR code menus, the steakhouse is untouched, I would say, by all of that.
Yeah, you're right. It's really the feeling of sitting in a leather booth versus walking into a new fancy all pine light wood. You've seen it 100 times. It's these places are unique, and it's about the patina. It's about that they haven't changed things in 50 years. It's about the hosts have worked there for 35 years, and he's the son, the owner. It's all of those connections that you nailed it. After the pandemic, everyone was just searching for warmth and familiarity. And there is something interesting about maybe you and I loving a steakhouse and our parents loving a steakhouse as well. That connection is really interesting because I love my parents, but we don't connect on some artistic things in that way. But this you can.
Yeah, reading the book was so interesting to me because I grew up in LA, which is where you're based, and you give love for all these amazing LA steakhouses, but I never went to a steakhouse growing up. It was when I like moved to the East Coast and started going to Keane's and Peter Luger and like these kinds of institutions. I mean, I think that just speaks to my parents and how they were raised. And like the kind of food that they crave. And honestly, when I go to a steakhouse, like I'm not really there for the steak. I'm there for the sides and the booth and all of those other things. But, reading the book, I was thinking a lot about like what the steakhouse is as a cultural artifact. And I was curious, like what you think the kind of generational draw is.
Yeah. Well, first of all, what you just said, Clayton, send me an audio file of that because you just nailed the book. You nailed it. That was really beautiful. And I can't even remember your question now. I'm so moved.
Oh, just like why do you think the steakhouse is such an interesting cultural artifact?
I think it represents so many things. There's so many ways to look at it. Firstly, it is truly an immigrant American experience because a lot of people come here and they try to do a restaurant and they try to do the cuisine from wherever they're from. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But a lot of people shifted towards, all right, people are eating meat, at the time, early 1900s, like let's focus on that. Let's adopt that thing. But then just naturally all of their goodness of wherever they're from enters into it. So it's not just the repetition of steak potatoes. It's this spin on it and you only see that if you travel around like I did.
I want to talk about where you went. So you visited over 60 steakhouses. How did you decide which ones you went to and then which ones made it into the actual book? Did you have any criteria?
Yes. Some of them were experiments because, like I was saying, we wanted the Vietnamese American experience, the Mexican American experience. The Vietnamese American steakhouse didn't quite make the cut because it didn't. We went to like Little Saigon in LA and we had the most amazing meat meal. 7 layers, called 7 layers of beef. It's unbelievable, but it didn't quite fit the criteria because there's certain elements of the institution of it, which is a little bit more formal of a setting, Mm-hmm. But you're so right about what I was going to say before is it's not about the steak. The title of the book is Steakhouse, but that's a word for the experience that you just described, which is the leather booth, the martini, the wedge salad. I barely get to a steak because the sides are so good, but it's the feel, or if I get a steak, we share it between 4 people because they're just so supersized. But on the other side of that, people go there because they can get a whole steak. Like my friend, Dr. Steve Brule, John C. Riley, when I go out to eat with him, he always gets a steak and he doesn't share. It's his own steak because he grew up with 7 kids and he had to fight to get a piece of any of the meat. So now it's a celebration when he can go out. It's so funny. All these years later, he still has that feeling of, you know what? This is my steak. I can afford this steak. I'm not sharing. And it's funny because I'm like, just come on. It's a huge ribeye. I can just give me a quarter of it. He's like, no, I want it on my plate. I don't share. And I was like, that's beautiful because that is, in some ways, the feeling of a steakhouse. It is excess. It is this celebration. It is like we're going out. So I think that feeling is embedded in all of us. And when you get there, people are dressed up. It's a good excuse to like put on your blazer every once in a while. Look good.
Yeah, I totally agree. I felt like you seem to be inclined towards highlighting more of the long-running institutions. I think like Major Domo in LA seemed to be one of the only new school steakhouses. Was that a choice that you made?
Yeah. Well, just to answer your question even more in depth, how we chose, we have a 500-page version of this book. We have the real masterpiece is the full thing. We had to cut a lot of pages. I asked for a lot. I told my publisher, this book needs to be huge. It needs to be 11 by 14. It needs to be 500 pages. But that's a big ask, and the reason is because you saw the portraits in there. They're unbelievable. You really need to see them on that scale. And in Los Angeles, I did a little big premiere, and I printed those portraits 60 inches by 40 inches, and I hung them in my studio like an art show. And it's so powerful because those people are so powerful. And we had to cut some for space, but we also had to cut some because it didn't quite make the cut. And that was part of the journey. For example, Fogo de Chao, we went to the original one in Dallas just to do due diligence on, that's how much we care about this book. it's not really a steakhouse, but it does have a lot of elements of what's comforting about a steakhouse and the amazing grilled meats. And sometimes, and we also went to Mexico. We went to Monterrey because we tried to find that perfect Mexican-American steakhouse. And my good friend Fermin Nunez, a chef down in Austin, took me to Monterey. And those are some of the best steakhouses I've had in the world. And they were very much in style with America, not like if you go to Japan, it's a whole different kind of setup. But Mexico made it in because I thought it was very important to have that part in a book about America.
Yeah, I think like the Monterey section, I wanted to go to that steakhouse. A lot of these steakhouses I was really dying to go to. The other one I was dying to go to is Acropolis, which is the strip club steakhouse in Portland, Oregon.
I mean, you know the story about that place?
Tell me.
I mean, it was owned by a ranch family. They had cattle, literally, and it was good quality. And they had ribeyes, and you could eat them on the rail, the side of the stage. And when I used to go back in the day, maybe 10 years ago, we would tour in Portland a lot, and they had a salad bar, and it was so great. I mean, you know, some people say it might not be the most sanitary thing, but as an American thing, I freaking loved it because it was a new form of the steakhouse, and the food is great. We did a recipe with them, the steak bites that they have, and it's true. It's just one of the best American things I've ever seen, and also the greatest music. They just play really speed metal. It's just, you have to go. It's amazing.
Well, I think like for anyone listening who's not familiar with Portland, like it really is a strip club city, and what might be unexpected, but there's like a vegan strip club you can go to in Portland. So the fact that there's a steakhouse strip club, I think cosmically makes sense for balance.
It does. And there's a rule, which is so weird about America, like different states have different rules, but you have to have food if you are serving alcohol. That's a real law. I mean, I'm pretty sure. Clayton, can you look that up?
No, you're definitely right.
I'm talking to Clayton like he's like, well, I just like him. I don't know.
We all love him. He should be shouted out more on the show, especially while fact-checking why strip clubs have to serve food.
I need a Clayton at all times. It's like Siri, but more handsome.
I want to get a little bit like more insight. Like, did you have a dish that you ordered at every place for consistency, or how did you even like measure the experiences at 65 different steakhouses across each other?
We did it scientifically. We shot 65 martinis. Like, that was kind of crazy, more of the artistic side of myself, that I wanted to literally not have 60 pages, but do this crazy collage chapter, but we ran out of space. Maybe I'll just do a book called Eric's Martini Photos. But, it's really interesting to see all of them with the different backgrounds, and I would always get a wedge, always get a shrimp cocktail, and usually a ribeye, or I would have a bite of someone's. At a certain point, we were shooting two a night, so you just have to have little nibbles. But we were very pro about it. Like, we took lots of notes, what's good, what's not good, and we went to a lot of places that I wouldn't normally go as a gourmand, but it wasn't about what I really tried to remove myself from the book and make something that's more for the people. And it sounds kind of weird, but another place in Portland called Sailors, it was jammed with mostly older people, war vets. It was very affordable. And I had to fight with my publisher to put that in the book. I'm like, you guys do not get it. This is absolutely part of the experience. It can't just be the grills and the Keens and those are all icons, but it needs to. I wanted to show the whole land, even Acropolis. They didn't want to keep that, but that's
Sailors
wrong.
is the one that has like the 72-ounce steak challenge.
Yes, and the
That's
blue
insane.
Cocktail,
and the menu looks like a giant steak.
Yes,
I mean, the photo alone.
Cover. Yeah, that photo is, and there's so many photos. I'm gonna stop crying that I had to cut stuff because editing is a good part of the whole creative process, but there's a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, I'm curious also the interviews you have throughout the book with longtime waiters, Psalms, etc. Did you enter the steakhouse and then immediately knew this is someone that we have to interview, or how did you kind of find the characters in the book?
That's a great question. Gabe Ula, who's my co-author, but he's way more than that. He produced this book with me, and he did the hard work of. We did pre-interviews. We did a lot of research. We talked to a lot of our chef friends about where to go, who to talk to, but my favorite part was the adventure, just going in blind, talking to people, figuring out who wants to talk, who doesn't, and then getting stories. It was really this fun adventure, but it was pretty in depth. Sometimes we would have to go back the second day to interview someone, or when we returned from these week-long steak tours, Gabe and I would call them and do phone interviews just to kind of clarify things or get the scoop.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that is one of the hallmarks of the steakhouse is the waiter who tells great stories, but actually finding the stories is more involved than you might think.
Yeah. I mean, the whole book was inspired by the steakhouse called Beef and Bottle in Charlotte, North Carolina. Actually, it's an hour outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. I was there shooting with Tim, my comedy partner, and to try to convince him to drive an hour outside the city for dinner is almost impossible because he's like, no, I'm chilling. Like, we got to work tomorrow. But I need to find the real shit. So I did it. And we all got in a van. We got there. Everyone's starving. And we're greeted by this guy, Jerome, who was featured in the book. He's this really tall guy, this huge gold crucifix. And he came right up to us. He says, y'all are going to have the time of your life. I'm your bartender. I'm also your server. What kind of martini y'all want? And that line alone, there's so much in there to unpack. The fact that there's only one cocktail that's appropriate, martini, that he's actually the server and he makes the drinks. It's like, and he guarantees us a good time. And we did. And he delivered. And that was really, that particular moment set me on the course to do this at every single steakhouse.
Yeah, it really is that confidence of like, you're in good hands here.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about anything. Like, what's your drink?
Exactly. Like it's so lovely. But then you have all the really nice flares of the South, like Hush Puppies, and that particular place, Beef and Bottle, had a that port cheddar dip you can kind of get at the grocery store. It's like usually which I loved as a kid, but they make a homemade version of that with saltines instead of bread and butter. And I was like, that is so amazing. So we recreated a recipe for that and shot it because I think that's so special to that part of the world.
Yeah, while we're talking about the South, what was it like to go to eat steak with T-Pain in Atlanta?
It was unbelievable. Originally Payne wasn't on the itinerary because we couldn't find anything in Atlanta, but we were so close. And I've been friends with him for many years, and he took me under his wing, and because I'm like, I know Atlanta, I listen to hip hop. He's like, no, you don't, dude. And he took me out, and because he worked with Adult Swim, the network that I was on, and he loved my shows. I'm just a huge fan of his, and so I was like, Payne, we're coming in town. If you want to have dinner, let's do it. If not, don't worry about it. He's like, 7 p.m. Meet me here, and he did. He pulls up in a purple Lamborghini. Him and his wife, who's the sweetest woman in the world, and we go to this, back room at I think it was called
Little Alley?
Little Alley. I was about to say Little Barn, but that's a different Little Alley. And it was so delicious. One of the first appetizers was deep fried lobster tail with clarified butter. Like, that is just a Southern thing, just to fry every protein. And, when the oysters came out, yeah, there was dry ice in the oyster presentation, and it just worked because it felt like it was a T-Pain concert in a way. and I wrote about it in the book, but him and his crew only drink tequila. Like, they're not wine people, even though they bought me crazy wine just because they're sweethearts. But yeah, they just drink tequila, and I was like, that is very interesting. I don't know if that's necessarily a Southern thing, but it's definitely a rapper thing because that happens a lot at dinners. And then he takes us to Magic City, and that's where the real show starts. It's just unbelievable. If you've never been to Magic City, it's like one of the coolest strip clubs in the world.
Like,
but
careers
it's really,
are made there. It's
yeah. It's very acrobatic. It's really like a show that it's like Cirque du Soleil is like child's play compared to like Magic City. Insane performers. It's unbelievable. So anyways, he knows how to show us a good time, and that is the feeling of a steakhouse. You kind of want to have fun, and that was great.
When you went with him, like, was it obvious to the staff and the people in the restaurant that this was like T-Pain at dinner, or was it more low key?
No, I mean, he's pretty. No, everyone knows T-Pain. You know, he is kind of one of the mayors of Atlanta for sure. So people just roll out. Like, there's a huge line at Magic City, and like security guys dive for T-Pain. You know, like it's like and honestly, when I did this, I did one of those animated films once, like the best night of your life kind of thing, and it was the first time I hung out with Payne, and he took me to a club called Onyx. And we walked in, and everyone's just like, "Oh my God, T-Pain!" And the DJ's like, "Oh shit, it's motherfucking T-Pain!" And everyone goes crazy. Hundreds of people. It was jammed. And T-Pain's like, "What's up?" And we go to like this special T-Pain room. But during the applause, I kind of like raised my hand, like I'm part of the crew. And I remember like this one guy turning, and he just shook his head. He's like, "No. That was for T-Pain." It's like, that wasn't for you. And I was like, oh, I was like, respect. That was a funny moment.
Okay. You learned, and then you got invited back, so it all worked out.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to tell you that Michelob Ultra, the official beer partner of the NBA, is bringing NBA fans closer than ever this season with chances to win great prizes, including courtside tickets. Enter now at michelobultra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Courtside 25 to 26. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 plus. Begins on October 1st, 2025 and ends on June 30th, 2026. Multiple entry periods. See official rules at michelobultra.com/courtside for free entry deadlines, prizes, and details.
Optimism isn't sunshine and rainbows. It's fixing things, changing the way we fix things. It's running the world on smarter energy. Because if optimism never stops, then change can't either. GE Vernova, the energy of change.
Icy Hot Pro with 2 max strength pain relievers. Targets multiple pain receptors. Ice works fast. Heat makes it last.
So I guess while we're talking about cities and the different places you went to, since I'm not an expert about LA steakhouses, despite the fact that it's my hometown,
Yeah.
What's
How
your
dare
favorite?
you.
I know. Well, we can go together maybe.
Yes.
What's your favorite steakhouse in LA?
See, this is when we get in trouble. There's so many. If I have to say one, I'm going to say Taylor's, because Taylor's in Koreatown. There's one in La Cañada, which I like too. But Taylor's Koreatown was the first steakhouse I went to. I went to with Tim Heidecker because when we first moved to LA, we were just kind of on our website. You know, this is before YouTube, if you can even imagine. We just had timanderic.com. And we had some fans in LA that were like, "We would love to take you out to our favorite restaurant." And we're like, "Cool." And it was this really lovely couple. They took us to Taylor's, and Tim and I were like, "Oh shit, this is like old school LA. This is like a different version of LA that's really awesome. And it has not changed, like very Rat Pack style." So when we shot the book, I brought Tim back and other people that are very close to me, Bob Odenkirk and John C. Reilly, just to kind of, and they all told one of the greatest chapters in the book is that Taylor's chapter where they each talk about working in restaurants, and it's so funny. Each of them just has a great story, and it was such a beautiful night, and they love it. And they're not, John and Bob know really they know good food, but they're not like maybe you and I are, which are a little bit more on the foodie side, but they love that. That's the point. Like, they had so much fun because they could understand the food. John got this whole steak, it was just like beautiful.
Yeah, I thought you would have said Musso and Frank's. That's funny.
That's, Musso and Frank's, I think, is the most beautiful room in the whole country. Not just steakhouses. Like, I think that place is unbelievable. I'm gonna give you the scoop. This is an exclusive. Clayton, play the music. Taste exclusive. No, just kidding. So out of all 65 restaurants we went to, Musso was the one that said, "No, thank you." And I fucking loved that. I loved it. Like, "No, we're not interested." Gabe called him many times. Like, nope. Like, they're known for, like, they don't do celebrity reservations. They don't hold tables. Like, they're just hardcore. But because they can. It's just, they make the rules. It's not like this big corporation. It's not like Starbucks where you have to do things a certain way. And I love it. So of course I try to weasel my way. Anyone says no to me, I'm like, this is instantly a challenge. So I get there, like, to do this, you have to talk to their PR guy, who's a trip, and he's pretty much, no, thank you. But he's like, but on the weekend, if you're interested, I'm doing a UFO club, and we really need new members. We really need some young Hollywood to come. And I'm like, oh, I'm so flattered you consider me young Hollywood. But I was like, and I really want to go to this thing. And then I was like, I can't. I know a lot of UFO guys, like, it's just too much. But anyway, so I still went in and I snuck my camera in. I'm sorry, Musos. And I shot one picture, which is the chopped steak, because it needed to be in the book. It's really this amazing dish that my friend Emil Haney taught me. And it's not many people get the chopped steak. But it's a good quality steak. They cook it perfectly, and then it's like served in some jus with a side of watercress, which is essential to have that bitterness. And then you get the steak sauce and you dip that. And if you haven't done, that's what we'll get when we do steak in LA.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned the chopped steak à poivre there, because I had never heard of a chopped steak before. I didn't realize it was something that you could order, but the recipe is in the book. So the recipes in the book, I was curious about this. What percentage of them are they exact from the restaurant? Are they an interpretation? Are they inspired?
So the chopped steak à poivre was on the animal menu. That's a John and Vinny recipe. And at the time, I was about to open up a hoagie wine bar with them at that animal space. But they were one of my first friends in LA that showed me the real shit. Like, they took me to Totaraku. They took me everywhere. But so I trust them and I love their food. And this was I love a poivre anything, but they use really good meat, and they're such classically French trained chefs that they just do it really well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, I also find it's just enjoyable. I don't know. There's something fun about it when it's done right.
Yeah. So that's a John and Vinny recipe, but
yes.
The book has lots of recipe sections. Like, where do the recipes all come from?
Most of them, maybe half of them, are from my chef friends. Like, Fermin Nunez did a version of his chipotle ribeye, which is so good. That's a great recipe. And then we got recipes from people in Monterrey, Mexico. That's the appetizer version of what we have in Japanese restaurants. It's the seared tuna with like ponzu. What is that called? Not teppanyaki. I can't remember.
Like tartare?
Yeah, but there's it's like a Nobu word. Anyways, it's just interesting. So we got that, but they did with steak in Monterey, and then we developed some on our own. We hired the best recipe developers, and some are from the South, because I wanted to harness that feeling. And sometimes that person didn't even eat there, but they knew through me gushing over what it was and the extreme documentation I did. We developed things like Parker House rolls and other things that are very unique but super tasty. So you can buy this book and you can just look at the pictures, and you can also buy this book and make the really world-class versions of these steakhouse recipes, and the simple versions. It's kind of both.
Yeah, there is such a nice, there's 4 different versions of a wedge salad, and you can make all 4.
Yeah, but there's only one martini recipe, because I'm stickler for everyone to at least try this version, because in my opinion, it's just the elevated way to go.
Yeah, what is your perfect martini?
My perfect martini is obviously gin, something good. You have Raku, that's my favorite right now. And you don't fuck it up. You don't need vermouth, and you don't need olive juice. Guess what? If the people are making the martini properly, it's all about the dilution and the temperature, and it's all about the patience to get there. Most places just rush you through. And making sure that the glass it's almost more of a practice than it is a recipe. It's just take your time, and you actually do want to taste the botanicals in a good gin. And I just pop 1 olive in, very good olive, maybe 2 drips of olive juice. But these people, the people that do dirty, I know there's lots of dirty people out there, dirty girls, dirty boys, dirty everything. And I used to be one of you. I used to be there in the gutter, just brining it up. But you do need to do that if you have shit gin. If you're going to a place that doesn't have some of these new wonderful St. George or Botanist, all those like that, we're making amazing gin. So it's like don't hide it. Just make it cold. But then there's a great, the only exception would be the grills. They do a pre-batch martini with a twist. And there's something about that is just incredible. Have you had that one?
I haven't. I'm afraid to say this, but I'm not really a martini drinker, to be honest. I know.
Clayton,
I'm more of
end recording. End the record.
He's out, folks. I'll do like a Negroni instead, or ideally a mezcal Negroni. I can do a stiff drink, but I'm not really a gin girly.
Are you more of a Mexican mudslide? Be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I would say mezcal Negroni. That's my steakhouse drink. Do I pass muster?
Yes, you do. Because mezcal is, I think, if I had to pick one spirit, that's my favorite. And I also love a Negroni because I'm in Italy a lot. And it's bitter. I love a good cocktail. I used to be into mixology. I love a proper daiquiri.
But you love wine also.
I do. But the steakhouse martini is all about the progression. It's about not overloading yourself with sugar or flavor in the beginning because you want to get to the good wine and then to the red wine. And, I think a steakhouse already is very powerful, usually leaning on the over-the-topness of flavor and salt and all that stuff, which is fine. But I think the martini to me is the right. It's kind of like, we shot at Cote in New York, and that was one of the most delicious steakhouses I've ever been to. And it's perfect food and perfect service and great wine. But you have banchan, you have these pickled elements in between bites, and that's for it's delicious, but it's actually for your body, for digestion and for just dealing with so much fat. You need that acid and you need that pickling. And in America, we don't really have that. So I look at the martini as a placeholder for that experience in the early part of a dinner. The other martini that I am guilty of, and I was going to put in the book, and Gabe, thank God he said no, it's the espresso martini. It's very controversial, but if you're shooting 2 steakhouses a night, you have to power up. So that's kind of, I'll do it if it's there's a good version of that. And the Major Domo has the greatest espresso martini I've ever had in my life. It's unbelievable. But they're also using fermented like what is that? Koju?
Mm-hmm. Koji?
Koji.
You're talking about long haul 65 steakhouses 2 a night sometimes. I have to ask how your health is doing. Are you okay?
Well, the problem is I've turned a couple of my friends on to martinis, and it's pretty intense if you're not a cocktail person. But yeah, we learned how to just nibble. Sometimes you have to nibble, and we would save places that we've been to many times as we'll just do that. For example, in Tampa, we went to Burns, which is one of the greatest places in the entire world, specifically for wine, steakhouse wine. But we just did 1 a night because we knew, well, we're also there. It was an 8-hour dinner, but it's, sorry, I'm going all over the place, but yes, you have to just take bites, analyze it, and then by this round 2, sometimes we, maybe too much wine and we're not much work's getting done, but we're having fun. And that's the point of the steakhouse,
I think that's the real takeaway. I have to be like, are you enlightened now? What is your take on steakhouses?
I was trying to make a recap video this morning because it's pub date. And the videos are so beautiful. It's just my friends and I, or every city, I would bring a friend or a chef that would host us. And and just talk about the town and what the steakhouse means to them. And that was like Chris Shepard in Houston, who's just a living icon in the food world, in the everything world. He took us to Pappas Brothers, which could be my favorite steakhouse in the world. And it took me a long time to get there, but it's also because he shaped it that way. It's in the South. It's in Houston, one of my favorite cities. It's really delicious, one of the craziest steakhouses ever. And then I had a crew of friends there where we all jammed into our car about to drive home, and we would listen to exclusively like very heavy metal for some reason, just to get us jacked up to work. And we were all headbanging, and all of a sudden we see this figure walking over to us and knocking. And we thought it was the cops, and it was Chris. He's like, "What are you guys doing? Can I come in there?" Like, you guys, and we're just like being silly and headbanging, but it was joyous, and yeah, it's fun.
It's the kind of thing that happens when you're in the like deep of your steakhouse reporting. I want to play a rapid fire game with you to close today. And I'm going to make you play some favorites. But before we do that, I'm wondering if you would very briefly tell our listeners about your decade-long beefsteak party and whether or not you think people should be trying to throw their own.
Listeners of the Taste Pod, hi. It's Eric Wareheim. Please support my art by buying Steakhouse. You know it's good. That's the thing. You know you want it. Beefsteak is so cool. It's like an early New York concept of celebration. And it was born out of a bunch of people getting together, all men back in those days. And, some great big sale or a stock market boom or something like that. Everyone would get together. They would wear black tie and they would wear a white apron, and there's no utensils. And they would just cook the meat, throw it down on a plate, and you eat with your hands and do the dippers. And we were like, I got together with some legends in Los Angeles, Matt Selman, head writer of Simpsons, Neil Fraser, a great chef, Court Cass, producer. And we're like, we need to do this, and we need to do it for charity, because we live close to downtown, and there's a massive problem right now. Well, not right now, always. And we raised tons of money for Food Bank, which made us feel good, and we could sort of simulate this experience. And we've been doing it. And we did one for the book, and we had to cut most of it because of the page count, but I promised I wouldn't talk about that anymore. But it was like, it's such a fun experience, and it's like a steakhouse experience, but on acid, and it's just times a million. It's really fun.
What do you think you gain by not using any utensils?
You just gain this. It is a primal experience, which I don't really love. I don't really love it. I'm like a wipe guy. Like if my truck has these organized wipes from wipes with aloe. I just use wipes just for cleaning my windshield. I just love them. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, using your hands is not my favorite thing, but for this, it's just great. And wiping it on your apron and not caring is really fun. And to see people that have never done it embrace it, and at the end of the night, they're just having fun and being loose. It's really cool. It's a great thing.
And if you want to do a beefsteak dinner, you can get the recipes in Steakhouse by Eric Steakheim. Okay, you ready for the rapid fire?
Let's do it. Hold on. Let me just do one quick breath. Ready?
Okay. If you could be a regular at any steakhouse, which one would it be?
Oh, God. I'm already stumped. Acropolis.
The most memorable server from the whole trip?
Jerome from Beef Bottle.
The best banquet you sat in?
Good questions. The best banquet? Taylor's.
Best martini?
Grill.
Best som?
Eric at Burns. I mean, there's him, and then there's everyone else. That's a whole nother pod.
I know. The best bottle of wine? That might be too hard.
Oh, well, I have a funny story. It was a 1976 Chateau Chem, which is a sweet wine. And it was at the grill, and I told Gabe, my co-author, do not let me order any wine past 9:30 p.m. Just don't. Because I was in New York. I had all my best friends there. he doesn't abide by his promise, and I'm ordering a dessert wine. I'm like, it's my birth year. And they have like a really crazy cellar of that wine. And it was very, very expensive. No one else wanted any. So I just drank half of it by myself. And it was thousands of dollars. It was like, but if it's a whole world of sweet wine, which is the good stuff is so profoundly good. It's like Riesling. You can have shit stuff, but if you try some of the great producers, it's really this otherworldly thing. So that would be it. There's so much good wine, though.
I know. We have to do a whole like wine podcast, honestly. Okay, a modern steakhouse or an old school steakhouse? Which do you prefer?
You know the answer. Old school, like the film.
Okay, one more time to talk about something that was cut. A steakhouse that you loved that you didn't have room to include in the book.
Oh, I mean, how long do we have? We had to cut so many. I would say, it's tragic. Del Rey. It's a place that in Los Angeles, we had our premiere book dinner there. And it was sad that we couldn't include them because that's another LA one to put on your list. It's in Pico Rivera. It's jammed every single night. It used to be a hotspot for Hollywood types that would drive there. It's like a 30-minute drive from Hollywood. But it has the entertainment, it has a piano bar. A guy plays 2 saxophones at once. There's a conga player. Tableside everything. The Tableside Caesar, I'm going to post about it today so you can see it. It's just like, it's performance art. It's just absolutely perfect. And they have an Italian-American vibe, so you can get like fried calamari. You can get, it's just shrimp scampi. It's beautiful.
You had me at 2 saxophones at once. That's incredible.
I also, that party was, there's a lot of just singing and crying. It was, and I also rented a party bus because that's just how I roll.
So fun.
Yeah.
Okay, final question, non-steak related question. A fictional food scene, like from a book or a movie, that you wish you could magically eat in real life.
Oh, this is great. Ooh, this is such a fun one. It would probably be any Sunday supper at the Soprano household. Like, I want that baked ziti. I just want it's funny, like that show, I started drinking wine by watching Sopranos, and they always had Ruffino, which is a very corporate wine, from Italy, and it's not very good. But I was like, Tony Soprano's drinking that, it's got to be good. It sort of got me into like making red sauce and meatballs and stuff. So,
I love that. That's a perfect answer. And this has been such a fun conversation, Eric. Thanks so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This is Taste is hosted and produced by Matt Rodbard and me, Eliza Abarbanel. The show is edited by lead producer Clayton Gumbert and supervised by Pat Stango, Director of Media Production and Development at Penguin Random House. Thanks to Shalia Harris and the production team at Penguin Random House. Theme music by Steve Rydell, logo and guest illustrations by Ellie Skurzat. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter to keep updated on all cool things in the world of taste.